Hello everybody, and welcome to another Flaming Dice Reviews video. My name is Matt, and today we are going to be taking a look at Urbis. It is a city building game by GAGA Games, and we're going to take a look at what comes in the box, how the game plays, and then I'll meet you back here for my final thoughts. I'll see you then. Now let's take a look at what comes inside of Urbis. You of course have a nicely printed rulebook, a deck of decree cards, as you can see here. We have guardian tokens, money or currency, and then a few markers to keep track of your income on your player boards. And they look like this. And every player gets one of these, and they are double-sided with a standard gameplay variant and an advanced variant. And then of course you have your building tiles. Now the game comes with a lot more than what you see here. This is just a small sampling, and here's what the artwork looks like on the tiles. You've got the old temple, the hospital, and the pay toilet. And again, there's a lot of these. The buildings are very unique, and they have a sort of retro PC strategy game look to them. Now, gameplay in Urbis revolves around really two things: your player board, or in this game it's called your city block, and the decree cards. And we're going to take a quick look at the city block, your player tableau, so to speak. Now, up at the top, you have your income. And so at the end of your turn, you're going to gain income based on where your marker is on this income tracker. And at the beginning of the game, it's however many players are in the game. So in a 4-player game, your income starts at 4. Now you'll notice that there's 10 spaces on your city block. And these are how much it costs to build there. Instead of the cost being on a building like it is in most games, it's just by these spaces, or it's set by these spaces. So for example, I can build a well, and I can pay 1 coin to build it there, or I can pay 10 coin to build it there. And the reason that's important is because the game ends when you end all, or whenever you fill up all 10 spaces in your city block. So if you have a lot of money now, you might want to go ahead and build on that 10. If you don't, but you want to get a building out anyway, maybe one that increases your income, you could spend 1 or 2 and build it there. Now let's take a quick look at the buildings themselves. For example, here is a well, and the well has a 1 at the top, which is income, how it affects your income. So the well has an income of 1, so I would move my income tracker up here to the 5. It also has a victory point score of 2. So if the game doesn't end by 1 player building all of the slots in their city block, then by the time the game ends, it comes down to victory points. And certain buildings are worth positive victory points, some are worth negative. So let's take a look at another building. Here is the hospital. And the hospital has a value of -2, or an income value of -2, but victory points of 5. So as soon as the hospital is played, I would lose 2 income. However, at the end of the game, it would be worth 5 victory points. Let's take a look at another. Here is a pay toilet, which gives you 1 income, but it's worth -5 victory points at the end of the game. And here's an old temple that it's not worth any victory points, but it does cost 3 income. So that's a very scary one to play. However, if you're trying to fill up your city block to win the game, you might be forced to play it. Another very important aspect of Urbis is the decree cards. So at the beginning of your turn, you're going to take 2 decree cards from the top of the deck. You're going to choose one, and then you're going to place the other on the bottom of the deck. And at the end of the video, I'll talk a little bit more about how impactful that is. But for right now, let's look at the decree cards. For example, here's one that says take 5 coins from the treasury. That's a pretty good one and very helpful to you. Oh, and if you'll notice, down at the bottom, at the end of the game, it's worth 1 victory points for having played that decree. So it's a positive effect for you, but it's not worth a whole lot at the end of the game as far as victory points go. Here's another. Each player except you gains 10 coins from the treasury. That one's not very good for you, and it helps your enemies or your opponents, but it's worth 3 victory points at the end of the game. Here's another. Show your decree cards to the player on your right. He must pick one and take it. Now, for example, if I drew all of these, I would most likely take the 5 coins from the treasury, and I would probably put something like each player except you gains 10 coins from the treasury onto the bottom of the deck. Now, at the end of the game, your choices become way less favorable because all of these cards that have been put on the bottom are now up for grabs. They're the only ones available. So your hand will start to fill up with cards that aren't very beneficial to you. I just want to take a brief look at some of the buildings and speak to the quality of the game components. So if you see here, there's a lot of different buildings, each with a little bit different specs. For example, the cemetery is worth negative 10 points at the end, and it doesn't do anything for your income. You've got buildings that are worth positive victory points, negative victory points, and then buildings that are just kind of a freebie. They don't have a negative or positive effect. You have buildings that let you put a guardian token into play. And what these do is these keep buildings from being targeted by decrees. So they're kind of a protection, and they are a finite resource in the game. Let's take a look at some more. That one gives you a guardian token, but negative 1 income, positive 1 income, and positive 3 victory points. So the workhouse is a really good one. The negative 7, what does that word say? Oh, shabby house. Through the camera, it looked like shady house. You got City Hall, which is worth 10 victory points. The bank, which is worth negative 7 victory points, but positive 2 income. Now, as to the quality of the game, these tiles are actually pretty thick and well made. The cards as well they're a little bit of a unique card stock. I've never quite seen anything like this before, but they're not of a bad quality. The tokens are pretty standard, just small and cut out. Some of them are a little bit off center, but they don't look bad at all. Overall, the game quality is fairly high. I was pleasantly surprised with it. The last thing that I do want to mention about Urbis, and this will be important for the final thoughts portion of this video, is that you can play whenever you build a building. You don't have to play it on your own city block. You can actually play it on anybody's city block. So once you get to that phase, you're going to draw a building tile from a stack, and if it's a really good building, you might want to put it on your own city block. If it's a really bad building, then you can play it on someone else's. And you can cripple their income or cause them to have negative victory points at the end of the game. And that's just one of the reasons that Urbis is so very cutthroat. You really have to be kind of ruthless to win Urbis. And I think that'll appeal to a lot of people. Welcome back, everybody. Now that we've seen Urbis and know a little bit about how the game plays, let's talk about my final thoughts. Now, I enjoyed Urbis. Now, there are going to be some people who are a little bit iffy on the artwork. The artwork is that pixelated, early 2000 PC strategy game type artwork. Now, that's very nostalgic to me because I played a lot of strategy games in the early 2000s like Stronghold or Zeus or Age of Empires, and the artwork is very reminiscent of that. There might be some people who don't care for it. I, however, did enjoy it. The gameplay is pretty solid, actually. The strategy is deep. You really have to weigh which plot in your block that you want to build in, and you really have to take in or a lot into consideration whenever you're choosing which building to build. You also have to take into a lot of consideration the guardians and spending that extra money to protect your buildings from decrees. I have had a couple of games end with people ending their city by completing all of the slots in their city block. However, most games have come down to points. And the ones that have come down to points, those games have been the most interesting because the decree cards, as you're getting through the deck and getting closer to the end of the game, you have really bad choices and you really have to choose between the lesser of two evils. Because throughout the game, at the beginning of your turn, whenever you draw two decree cards and put one on the bottom of the deck, well, one of those cards is going to be bad, most likely. Unless you drew two bad ones, in which case you're going to get a bad card and you're going to put a bad card on the bottom. In any case, most likely there's going to be a lot of really bad cards towards the end of the deck. And that can really lead to some very deep strategy in that, well, do I want to, get this card that's going to mess up my city block that I've got going, or do I want to mess up my finances? It's really, really strategic. The game is incredibly cutthroat. If you like games like Munchkin with a really strong take that aspect to the game, then I think you'll enjoy Urbis. Also, if you like city building games, I think Urbis would be definitely worth looking at. Now, I've tried to find Urbis online in some of the major online board game retailers, and it's a little bit hard to find. However, I believe you can order it straight from the manufacturer, which of course is GAGA Games. Well, anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe and share it, and visit the website at www.flamingdicereviews.com. We write all kinds of board game articles and make videos and reviews, and I hope to see you there. And you can also visit us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/flamingdicereviews. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.